Asked to go to one of the microphones, identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. And written comments from the public will be accepted at the city clerk's office until Tuesday at 1 p.m. Our minute taker is participating remotely, so if she's unable to hear us, she will remind us through audio to either speak louder or turn on our microphones. And we have a little cheater in front of us to tell us to turn the microphone on. Having said all that, it's time to call this meeting to order. We have an agenda, but we have a little addition because we have a young lady that's come here tonight to speak or deliver a message to the city council, being told that this was the night that this was on the agenda. And it's not an action item. She just wants to deliver an address. So if you would, thank you. Sorry that you had to come all the way in. And
That's okay. Does this mic work?
If the green light's on.
Carmen Trafton, 5 Pender Court, Keene, New Hampshire. I came here tonight to thank you for all that you have done for the Samaritans throughout the many years of our community partnership. We couldn't have done it without you. You've been amazing supporters and donors, and we have very much enjoyed working together in this beautiful city. We have the deepest respect and gratitude for all of you, so I came here tonight to personally share some sad news with you. Unfortunately, we can't sustain ourselves any longer, and our last day of business will be June 30th, 2023. We withdraw our $6,500 request for outside agency funding and hope that others can benefit from this situation. We would have closed in 2019 after we were no longer eligible for the United Way's narrow funding parameters of kids, jobs, and education, but the Boys from Pedaling for Prevention and COVID CARES Act funding came along and sustained us for a few more important years. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline 988 is up and running. New Hampshire educators and staff are required to attend a minimum of 2 hours of suicide prevention training annually. Every New Hampshire high school and college student ID will have student crisis hotline information on them. Programs like Pedaling for Prevention, Connor's Climb, Morgan's Message, and others have helped us to reduce the stigma and engage students and adults in meaningful dialogue and results. We have worked towards these efforts since 1981 and are extremely proud of our results. Our Keene State College interns are finishing up their semester, and we still have enough money to get through the end of this fiscal year. This seems to be a good place to finish strong with grace. It's been a very tough decision, and we're extremely grateful for all that you have done. Please save the date to plan to join us on Sunday, June 4th at 1 p.m. in Ashwelot Park for a special dedication and to say farewell. Thank you.
thank you. We appreciate you coming in. Sorry to hear that news, but we're sure we can support you in many other ways. Thanks. All right, first item on our printed agenda is from the police department. Captain?
Good evening. Steve Tenney, captain from the police department. I'm here tonight with, excuse me, 2 items. They're both grant related. The first one is very similar to what you've seen me here before with. It's a grant from the Homeland Security Program. This particular grant is out of the 2022 carve-out that is granted to members of the NHTOA, or teams that are members of the NHTOA. This particular grant is in the amount of $14,773.43. With this money, we are looking to replace our current tactical team vest. Many of them are becoming dated and expired. So this money will help us fill that void and get our equipment current.
Thank you. Questions from members of the committee? No other city councilors, members of the public? Seeing none, motion?
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to apply for, accept, and expend the 2022 Homeland Security Grant Program Search and Rescue Equipment Grant in the amount of $14,773.43.
And I second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Next item.
Thank you. The second one is also a grant. It's one that's already been applied for, and we just received notice that we were awarded this grant if accepted. This one is for our K-9 team. It was a application for a ballistic and stab-proof vest for our K-9. This is something we've had for all our past K-9 teams, to include my own, way back a long time ago. And this replaces a vest that has become worn, also doesn't fit our current dog, and so that's what this money will be used for. Actually, it's not the money. They supply us with the vest that's worth about $1,800.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Questions from members of the committee? Any members of the public wish to speak? Seeing none?
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and expend a bulletproof vest grant that was awarded to the Keene Police K-9 program through a grant application.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Good evening. My name is Alyssa Bender. I am the Youth Services Manager. We were recently just informed that we were awarded for the fourth year a grant from the Department of Health and Human Services. This year we would be getting $16,405. So all of this funding is only given to state-accredited juvenile court diversion programs, which we run currently. With this money, we are able to provide assistance to low-income families with restitution supports. We're able to expand other programs for prevention and intervention that we are allowed to give during juvenile court diversion. We're also using this funding to pull on a case manager as well to support them in the efforts.
Okay, thank you. Questions, members of the committee? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say, I feel like the Human Services Department is the unsung hero in the city, and you guys do a lot of great work, so I'm glad that you have some grant funding to help.
Thank you.
Members of the public wish to speak to this? Seeing no one, motion.
Move to recommend the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and expend funds provided by the state of New Hampshire for juvenile court diversion programming.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Mr. Bohannon.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Andy Bohannon, Parks Recreation Facilities Director. The first item before you tonight is a lease agreement for 11 Central Square, and for the city manager to be authorized to negotiate and execute this agreement with Steel Curtain LLC for the use of space of 11 Central. So just to kind of give you a little bit of history here, Luca Paris, who owns the Culinary Journey Management Company, began renting that space in, I believe, about 2000. And for about 15 years, operated a cafe in that space simultaneously of operating the Mediterranean restaurant. And they kind of shared a little bit of space down in the basement and crossover up top. And so when he closed that opportunity, and moved on in his career. He kind of like buyer's remorse. In about a month after, he's like, if that space ever opens up again, I would like the opportunity to revisit the choice with the city. So keeping that in mind, at the time that we signed with the Funky Noodle, which closed unfortunately to the timely death of the owner, there was the opportunity he knew coming forward because his lease was almost the same exact time frame as their lease. Because when they closed, he closed that and then renewed his lease with the other 10 Central Square. So at the unfortunate part of tonight related to whether or not what process we use, the Funky Noodle themselves kind of started reaching out to different restaurants, and so kind of took the ability for the city to be able to work directly with different restaurants, and so that's why we started requesting a letter of interest from them. In doing so, at that time, the Culinary Journey Management Corp., Lucas Cafe, they had reached out to the Funky Noodle to purchase all of their inventory, and not just the kitchen equipment, but the whole kitchen, everything that's in the restaurant. So, and they worked out a deal to retain all of that belongings within 11 Central Square. And so, with the decision to renew, we looked at them as a long-standing partner. We know them. They've been great to us to work with. And so we wanted to recommend tonight that the City Council recommend the Steel Curtain LLC, which is a managing partner for the with the Culinary Journey, to come forward and be that choice for 11 Central Square. And I know the general manager, Casey Meyer-Rose, is here tonight. Luca was not able to be present, but she does have a letter from him if you want to call upon her, or if you have any questions, certainly would be able to answer those.
Oh, I'm just curious what the plan is for the space. I mean, obviously it's restaurant related, but is it going to be a market or a cafe or, self-serve or what the plan is?
It's probably a better question to ask Casey, but to my knowledge, the infrastructure is going to remain the same, kind of a bar setup, different type of menu than what they've had in the past. I think if people remember the old cafe, the window opportunity that they had there, that was left over from Jean's Pastry, if people can go back that far. I can as well. And so that was their opportunity to showcase that, and they're just transitioning to a more updated menu and a bar, and have a little bit different operating hours than what the 10 Central Square operates as. But they would be connected.
Okay, before we ask for anything else, in your memo to us, thanks, my light didn't come on. In the memo, it says that this was put out for proposals, and there were 4 folks that expressed an interest, but only 3 replied.
We did not request, we did not do proposals. We asked for a letter of interest. This is what we had done previously for previous tenants, YOLO, the barber, even Fokeen. The space became available. Or Funky Noodle as they are now. But we really just took a letter of interest, and this particular time we had a few that were interested in. One started working with Funky Noodle to say, this is our space, but as soon as they had to put a letter of interest to me, we never heard from them again. So.
Okay, thanks. Sure, we'd love to hear from
Casey?
Lucas representatives.
Hi, I'm Casey Meyer-Rose. I am the general manager of Luca's as well as the managing partner of the restaurant right now. Luca would have loved to have been here tonight, but because of his commitments with the chamber, needed to be in Peterborough. He did write a letter that I can submit to you all to read later if you'd like. To address the question on what the plans are, it's really an expansion of what we're doing currently, as well as an option to be open later on one side, which would be the space at 11 Central Square, while running a lounge and late-night kitchen menu. The intent is not to make it a bar or anything like that, just an extension of what we are currently doing with the ability to provide another late-night dining option in Keene. Where we are currently, a huge problem that we've run into is we've kind of maxed out our entire capacity in the small space that we have. We have the 2 concurrent leases with the city right now for what we call our wine cellar and the restaurant itself and our small patio space. Our intention would be to expand our patio seating for the summer months, as well as move our current operating kitchen into the space next door and utilize the current kitchen that we have at 10 Central Square for catering and prep cooking so that we can get all of that stuff out of the basement because we're kind of just all crammed in there right now. The operating hours would change for just the one side. Lucas would continue closing and doing their last seating at 8:30 in the main dining area, but our bar and lounge would be open with a menu from the kitchen that runs until 10:30 at night, and then we would close at 11 p.m. So that's the plan. If we have any other questions, I can try to answer them to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Other questions? Go ahead.
There's definitely a need for places to stay open after 9
Yeah.
and serve later, so I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just curious. So if I understand the entity that's going to be, it's the managing partner of a Culinary Journey Management Corporation is this other entity. Is that
Steel
right?
Curtain LLC,
Steel
correct.
Curtain. So is the lease going to be in connection with Steel Curtain, or is it going to be Culinary Journey Management?
The lease would still remain under Culinary Journey Management Corporation. They, Steel Curtain purchased a large percentage of Culinary Journey Management Corporation. I will remain the managing partner at the restaurant itself. This was just kind of a way for us to get everything in order so that we could do the expansion. Their intention is to be bought out in the end.
Who's going to be bought out?
Steel Curtain LLC would be
Okay.
bought out in the end, and it would still remain as just Culinary Journey Management Corporation, extending its business the same way that we do now.
Okay, so at the end of the day, the remaining organization, remaining entity will be Culinary Journey Management Corporation.
Exactly.
Right, after all of this is said and
Yep.
done? And the other lease that you have with the wine cellar, that's also through Culinary Management?
Yep. They will all
So-
be through the same.
Thank you. We need to change the
Yeah,
motion.
my mistake.
No, no worries. Ah, you're fine. It would need to be a lease with Culinary Journey Management
Yeah.
Corporation then.
No worries. It's a confusing setup.
Any further questions from up here? Anybody in the audience wish to speak? In that case, looking for a motion.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate and execute a lease with Culinary Journey Management Corporation for the use of space at 11 Central Square.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? If there is none, we'll have a vote here. All in favor? Anybody opposed? It's unanimous. Get to work on that, please.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll meet you down there to work this out. Next item, also from Parks and Rec.
Yes, so this opportunity before you is to have the city manager execute a submission for for the application of a Community Development Finance Authority Community Center Investment Program for the purposes of renovating the Brian A. Mattson Recreation Center. So this is a first-time community center funded program, and this is through the opportunity to provide a option of forgivable loan at 0%, and it would be an 85% share, so the city would only have 15% to put forward. And it focuses on the CDFA energy policy of trying to renovate and make the building more sustainable. So if you are familiar with the capital improvement plan adopted in this last cycle, we were scheduled in FY '25 to begin design work for an FY '26 major renovation of the old multipurpose room and lobby, bathrooms, and office space. Looking at that particular project, Scott Martin, facilities manager, has done a fantastic job of looking at different ways for us to be able to the Matrix, Tom. The Matrix, Tom. Good? No, that's okay. So we're looking to scale that project back a little bit. We did have funding currently to do the HVAC work and the boiler work. So by enabling those two projects as our match, we would be able to then go forward and add that 85% and do the windows of the recreation center. We would like to be able to add to this project a ADA compliant ramp that goes from the beginning of if you're familiar with the rec center, there's a staircase that goes down to the playground and a staircase that goes down to the war memorial. And there's no way for somebody with a wheelchair or a mobility device to get to the bottom war memorial unless they park at the handicap spot over off of Gilsum Street or along the way of Washington Street. So enable to add that feature down to the war memorial, starting back at the staircase and work its way down. We would add that into that project, which is something that I know we've always wanted to do. That enables a lot of people to have access to the park area. In the playground, so in the war memorial. So in taking all of these projects, scaling them down, we're actually going to be reducing the opportunity for the project that's in the CIP by quite a bit of money, and enabling that to essentially be done through this grant. So what its grant is due, we're also going to be doing a level 2 energy assessment prior to so how the cycle works is April 21st, the grant is due. They make decision by the end of May, and then work has to start within 6 months. So if we are awarded, these projects will be kicking off come October, November, that time frame. We have about 18 months to make that complete, which we know we do because we already have some of the contractors lined up for the various pieces of work. But it would also improve the energy savings at the recreation center.
Questions? So when you say the project scaled back, what do you mean?
Well, so there was going to be a major renovation of the building, of the multipurpose room, the new floor, new tile work in the lobby, reconfiguration of the offices. If we're able to get new windows, a new HVAC, energy efficiency scheduled, and we'll be able to program all of that, there's really no need to disrupt that room because we'll be insulating that room as well and doing the things that need to be done within that envelope. saving the city close to $1 million related to that. So the building itself is, we were trying to make it better with that project in the CIP. This will do almost everything that we were asking for, but still have a very viable building for a long time in the future.
Will the boiler have to be addressed at some point?
The boiler will be a part of this project,
Okay.
so, yeah,
All right.
yeah, if they
Thanks.
make it that far.
I just wanted to add a comment. I wanted to recognize Director Bohannon. This is a new grant opportunity. We've not had the ability to apply for this type of grant in the past. CDFA made this change. It was a very short window of time for us to pull it together, and Andy worked hard to get this all together and meet the deadline, but also to think outside of the box and how we might be able to fit the elements of our project into this grant application. And if we are successful, save a substantial amount of money for the taxpayers. And so really wanted to just recognize Director Bohannon for his efforts.
Fingers crossed.
Job well done.
Thank you.
Have you been to Hannaford's lately?
I have.
Would you like to report to everybody how we're making out on the name of the building that we just referred to?
Yes, so Peter Panessa, our Keen Sign Works, is going to be coming back with some design related to that, and we should be, that small group of committee members will be making a decision here pretty quickly, and then we'll have a number to work towards fundraising and making that happen.
Thank you.
So hopefully the timing will be coinciding with this project.
Excellent. Any comments from members in the public? Seeing none, motion, please.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to execute the submission of the application for Community Development Finance Authority Community Center Investment Program for the purposes of renovating the Brian A. Mattson Recreation Center.
And I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Anyone opposed? No one opposed? Unanimous. You got the next one, too?
Got the next one, too.
Thank you.
But I will be calling in some help from our civil engineer, Brett Resnick, for this one. The facilities team has been working closely with engineering relating to the back wall of City Hall, which has been in the capital improvement program. And as you're aware, we included a $1.3 million project in FY '25. Brett has been working diligently with Dubois and King over the last couple of years to determine a process. We finally got to a place where we had put out a bid for the work to be done to shore up the wall to get us to that point of that project. We were over, the one bid came back slightly over budget, and so we had to come before you tonight trying to reallocate some items. Part of that, and I'll let Brett kind of explain the detail of what needs to happen. Part of that, knowing that the West Keene Fire Station is scheduled for design work, schematic design, pending grant funding. Unfortunately, that grant didn't come through, so it's enabled us to borrow from that particular project, but we, at the end, if the project comes through, towards the end, we were able to save money, would reallocate that money back to that particular project. So it's kind of a little bit of a shuffle immediately, but I think we're in a good place thanks to Brett and his efforts. So Brett, if you want to share some of the details of the project.
Sure. Thank you, Andy. And my name is Brent Resnock. I'm a civil engineer with the Keene Public Works Department, and I'm lucky to work with Andy and his staff on this unique project. So we did a investigative and design report for the rear wall, and our initial plan was to design in fiscal year 2021, and that work has been completed. And then in fiscal year 25, do the full final detailed design, contract documents, and construction. Unfortunately, our structural engineers informed us that FY25 may be too late to wait for some of this work. So we decided to use the remaining budget that we had in the project, which was $66,000, and put out what we call a immediate repair project to the rear wall of City Hall. And that involves installing some steel rods through the brick wall and anchoring those rods to the wooden framing of the building. And that will provide some anchoring of the brick, which on its own may slowly continue to lean outward further and further. So, as Andy said, that work did not come in under budget. We got one bid, which was about $50,000 higher than our budget, and we're seeking to retime the projects to allow that work to happen immediately.
Questions? We all understand what he's gonna do. That, it's not gonna fall down, right? That report the engineering firm did as a full project, is that available? I mean, I think that would be a fascinating read to figure out what's going on. Is that available?
Yes, certainly,
Okay,
we can
that's
share
great.
that.
And you have a contractor lined up to be able to do the initial work?
Yes, we have one bid, and they submitted their bid at the end of March, and so they are required to hold their price for 90 days. And if we can reallocate the funding appropriately, we can award the contract shortly.
So we will need to do which we can do anytime? Okay. All right. Anybody from the public wish to speak? In that case, a motion. Somewhere.
Move to recommend that the city council reallocate $60,000 from the West Keene Fire Station project 65J0010 to the City Hall Structural Repairs Project 65J0002.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Unanimous. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Aaron Costa, Assistant Public Works Director, Operations Manager of the Treatment Facilities. I'm here tonight to request that the city manager be authorized to execute Change Order 1 with GZA for their work on the water supply master plan and well facilities evaluation for an amount not to exceed $30,000. As you all know, the city of Keene produces about 2 million gallons of water per day to meet the customer demands throughout the city. We have 3 separate water supplies, our surface water reservoirs located in Roxbury, and 2 groundwater supplies, one located on West Street and the other on Court Street. And not one of those supplies is able to meet the demand alone. So having multiple supplies is a benefit for the city. The city does have a water supply master plan, and it was last updated in 1992, so about 30 years ago. And obviously changes in climate regulations indicated it was time to update that plan. And in 2021, the city contracted with GZA, who also partnered with Underwood Engineering on this project, to complete the water supply master plan and well facilities evaluation. And that plan looked at multitude of different things, such as additional groundwater and surface water supplies, potential capacities, water quality, future demands. It also took an in-depth, detailed evaluation of the well facilities, which have been in operation for many years, and provided recommendations and cost estimates, which will be the basis for future CIP projects. So working with GZA and Underwood for the past 2 years, they've put a lot of work into it to meet the city's expectation, more than they originally kind of budgeted for. So they're requesting the additional funds for their level of effort. This change order does exceed the city manager's authority. The The city did budget $175,000 for this work, and the original contract with GZA was for around $110,000, so there are funds available in that capital project. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but we're also, the last deliverable that they need to provide is a presentation to City Council, which is tentatively scheduled for next week. So we hope to present our findings in front of the whole council, and you know, for me, it's a pretty exciting project to share, so I'm looking forward to that. And like I said, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but we're going to get into some pretty good detail next week.
Thank you. What happens if we vote no?
Then GZA will eat it, and then they'll move on.
Say that again. What was the answer? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, GZA will, you know, they understand that, you know, nothing was promised to them. They did ask, you know, for additional funds for their level of effort, but if the answer to the question was, if they say no, then GZA will understand and they'll move on and they'll just eat the cost. I do believe that GZA is warranted the additional funds based on their level of effort, though.
And I guess just to follow up on that, have they provided a greater level of detail than we originally scoped out?
Yes, the level of effort to meet the city's expectation far exceed what they budgeted for originally. We've gone through many revisions of the report. There's been much greater administration on their level, revising reports, meeting with city staff. There were many more meetings than originally anticipated. In the end, the city got a really good project, and I believe that they are warranted the additional funds for their level of effort.
Well, I think we all know that the cost of doing business just escalates almost on a daily basis. And I guess when you come to construction and engineering and just keeping up with all the regulations that come out as it relates to water and sewer, it comes out of Concord to us, that changes on almost a weekly or monthly basis, so the engineers need to keep up with it as well as the city staff. I don't like to see these increases either, but I think I understand, and I think everybody else wants to see us watch our tax dollars, and I think we are by asking questions. But knowing that we're getting a good product makes me feel a little more comfortable. I don't know if the average taxpayer will feel the same way. However, when they go to get water from the tap, and it usually, I can't think of the court's number, but it's only about 2 cents.
About 2 cents a gallon.
These are the things we need to do well in advance to laying a water line. That's my 2 cents.
I guess my quick question is, GZA and Emery and Garrett, they're fairly local, correct?
Yes, they have an office in Keene.
Okay, thank you.
And I will add that because of this water supply master plan that we've recently put together, the city is in the process of working through a planning grant with DES for $50,000 for development of a new potential well facility on property the city bought off of Arch Street in the Bent Court area probably close to 15 years ago now. It was a site identified for a potential groundwater source, and because of the work directly related to this water supply master plan, the DES has accepted our application. We just submitted a scope of work, but it should be for a $50,000 planning grant.
Thank you. I'm very, very torn on this. I'm probably gonna vote no, but I reserve the right to get smarter before next week and think about it. I just have a hard time with like the timing of a change order coming in after the work's been completed.
I understand that, GZA understands that, and
Yeah. Thank you.
I just have concern of setting a precedence.
Well, I don't know that we're
Yeah.
chiseling it in concrete. I don't think we're setting a precedent. We're addressing a situation, so.
And I mean, just a reminder to my fellow counselors, this isn't the final word. Like Remy said, we can get smarter before next week. We're really just making a recommendation. So we actually enjoy the benefit of getting to vote on it twice. So whatever you vote on today, you can change that, next week. If we're going to get the opportunity to kind of see this product at next week's council meeting and kind of make our own decision.
Make sure
This-
you're here next week.
That's just my 2 cents for the gallon.
All right, anything else? It's your turn. Would you rather pass it on? Tina, please?
Reading the motion. Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to execute change order 1 with Emery and Garrett Groundwater Investigations / GZA for additional engineering services for the water supply master plan and well facilities evaluation for an amount not to exceed $30,000 for contract 02-20-11.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly understand the concern about wanting to expend additional funds on a project that's essentially nearing the completion, but given the feedback from city staff that the city's work in collaboration with GZA to provide a product that went above and beyond our original scope, again, with collaboration with the city, I personally think that warrants this additional funding release.
Go ahead.
I would just add, given what the Assistant Public Works Director has said about this well site, it's already been approved by the DWGB, correct?
The application has been, we've
Okay.
recently submitted a scope of work for their review.
Okay. That's not a small process to get a new well site, especially for a large municipal production well like what we're getting. To get approved through DES is, that's a pretty tall order. The fact that this report is going to assist in that, in my mind, warrants the cost. But like I said, we can see that report next week and we can make our final decision then.
Yes, ma'am.
So I had the opportunity to have a preview of the report. Spent hour, 2 hours?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half. And went through all of the work that they completed on our behalf. And I was very impressed. I think we have a very good product. And I do understand that they did the additional work that we were looking for at their own risk, and they knew that. But it was in response to questions that we had, so that we had a full report to bring forward to the council. And so I do think that their request, I support this request. I think they did do the additional work that we needed to complete this project, and would like to see the change order.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate what the fellow counselors and staff have said, and it's persuasive.
These reports will not be what we now refer to as shelfies. They will be, a water supply master plan that is a roadmap and well evaluation facilities evaluation. That's going to be a roadmap for us for a long time.
Thank you. All right. We ready to vote? All in favor? Those opposed? 1. 4-1. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Your
evening.
turn.
Good evening, Assistant City Manager, Human Resources Director Beth Fox. I'm here tonight with two items. The first item deals with the city's class allocation ordinance for non-union personnel and requests that a position that is currently in a 17 position be regraded and retitled. Under a normal, probably more normal circumstances, we would have waited a few weeks or probably a couple months now because it's only April, and just done this as part of the budget process. But we are in a real tight box right now with succession planning in the finance department, and we know we're working against a deadline, and we need to get people in and get this process started in order for that department, I think, to be successful moving forward. We've seen over the past few years enormous changes in this particular job. Both the grant environment has become much more complex, and this job position is key to keeping us in compliance. And not being in compliance on grant conditions is a very bad thing. We do so much in this city with grants, and we are so aggressive in grants that we can't afford, in my opinion, and I think the city manager concurred, which is why this came forward, to just wait a few more months and deal with this when we would normally do so. This position also has become key as as the department has to manage cloud-based software, it's just finance is, and I think people who work in finance know this. There's nothing about finance that seems to ever becoming more simple. It's just becoming increasingly complex, and the problems are becoming more difficult to solve. And this position is a resource across the organization, and it's the reason our non-finance people can be successful in the work they do. So this proposal, we did a review of the position description and then evaluated it considering our current criteria. And this position warranted an upgrade, and we feel it's very important to get this process going in the near future, not sometime later this summer. So.
We need it now, like tomorrow.
You need to stop letting people retire.
Well, this is the problem, that in retirements, we have people that have been with the city for long periods of time. There's a lot of institutional knowledge in these positions, and these positions are key to making decisions. We have to have good financial data in order to make good decisions. And I can tell you that municipalities are recruiting in their finance departments and not having a lot of luck. And we had, if you remember, we had a position that we had to go out for a couple of times to finally bring someone in the finance department. And so, I really wanted to do this months ago, to be honest. I wanted to regrade and do some reorganization of the department because it's clear there's an issue. We've got to get ahead of this. But we couldn't get our heads up long enough to do it. With the conversion of the software and then doing the budget and a brand new system and trying to manage all those things, we couldn't. And so, Beth mentioned, we normally do these types of requests during the budget process, and there will be others that will come, but I need to recruit for this position now. It takes us, in my mind, too long, and I know why it takes us a long time to recruit, but too long. And then we need a period of time for training, and so I really hope that you'll support this and that we can get this position out and advertised and get someone in as soon as possible.
Questions, members of the committee? Anybody in the public? No. So would you like to do this motion?
Sure, I'll get the order back in order. Move to recommend the adoption of ordinance O 2023-09.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you. The second item is really pretty straightforward. We recently adopted an AFSCME contract that changed how we managed vacation leave for probationary AFSCME employees. This proposed ordinance change inserts the AFSCME group into the ordinance and aligns it to the contract. And it probably, some might argue it could be considered redundant, but because the contract on its face doesn't cover AFSCME employees, but this provision does, I thought it was important that code and the contract be in alignment so that there aren't any questions about our practices and that we're administering our policies in accordance with both code and contract. So it's pretty, I think it's a pretty straightforward change, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, members of the committee? Public? Seeing none, motion, please.
Move to recommend the adoption of ordinance O 2023-10.
And I second.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. And item number 10. Ultimately, there's a
Resolution.
resolution that's going to come out of this, but this is the city manager and the fire chief.
Yeah, I'll kick this off. Yeah. So back on March 23rd at the FOP meeting, I brought forward a request to hire 4 additional firefighters, 1 for each shift, and to move that process forward now. And we also presented to you some information related to overtime, and we've been paying for that extra person on the shift for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, by overtime, using overtime. And so the chief has done an analysis, and we've looked at, what does this do to our budget every year for the past almost 6 years now. Almost 6 years I've been here. We're moving money from the police department to the fire department, and a lot of it is because we're covering overtime. Now, this is not going to completely change that or reduce, it will reduce the amount of overtime that we're using, but it will also provide for the coverage, because when people are out on vacation, some sort of a leave, right now, again, we're covering it with overtime. And so the addition of the 1 per shift would bring us to a staffing level of 11 firefighters per shift, and that would support the minimum staffing level of 10. The resolution that's before you tonight was revised after speaking with the committee to only cover the remainder of this fiscal year. So initially, I brought forward a proposal that would fund the entire year. And obviously, we're close to the end of our fiscal year. And so the resolution that's before you would fund 6 weeks or 42 days for the 4 firefighters, and the additional operating related expenses, which are contractual training, gear, licenses, background check, NFPA physicals. Those other operating expenses amount to about $41,000. So the resolution in total is for $102,416.54, and it would appropriate these funds from the fund balance. And the other important part of the conversation from the last FOP meeting is I'm asking that these positions be included in the next year budget, so part of the fiscal '24 budget, but outside of the fiscal policy limitations, because the fiscal policy limitations, as you know, talk about the CPIU over the average CPIU over the last 3 years. And it provides sort of a box that I work within when putting the budget together for you. It's impossible to do that and fund 4 new firefighters. And so, I'm asking that that not be part of the fiscal policy conversation. And so, obviously, the numbers will be provided, but to do it separately. And I think, tonight, we're happy to answer any additional questions that may have come up since the last meeting. This really did all originate from the fire staffing committee that was created over a year ago, when we took an in-depth look at the number of calls and the increase of calls, the types of calls, the length of time it was taking us to respond to a call, and really with no change in our staffing since 2008. And the committee wholeheartedly supported the increase of the 4 additional firefighters. And, we did go for a grant, And we unfortunately were not successful at getting that grant, and which is why we're here tonight asking you to support this and move this forward.
Questions, members of the committee? Public? Well, you've done a good job. You've said enough.
It's been my best appearance thus far, thank you.
All right. Motion, please.
Move to recommend the adoption of Resolution R 2023-18.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we have no other items on our agenda. However, in my quest to make sure we all know our employees, if you see Rebecca Landry around here in the next week or so, congratulate her. 25 years in this building. Wow. That's pretty good. And then, for those of us up here, after the next regular FOP meeting, we have to work on that election changes. So Patty thinks it just takes us about an hour. We're all going to be here. Might as well get it done. And then that project will move forward, and the city council can decide if they want to do a public hearing. With that, adjourned. Thank you.